Have you ever wondered why you see people bragging on the internet that their case was approved in 4 months while you're still waiting for your NOAA 2 in 8 months? In this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly how your case is processed in USCIS and what potential bottlenecks could hold up your case and cause delays. Unlike the 1970s, your packet doesn't go straight to an officer. It's sent to a lockbox, usually Dallas, where it's scanned by contractors and they process your payment. Once your file is digitized, USCIS loads it into their system, specifically Claims 3. That's the old platform that is still used for non-immigrant visas, and I-130 will go into a different, newer systems. But the K3 actually goes to the old system, which is why you can't file online, unlike you could for an I-130. Once your packet is digitized, it's still not reviewed by a human. The packet is automatically run through various automated checks such as IVIS, that's for warrants. They want to make sure you don't have any warrants out for your arrest. NCIC, that's going to check your criminal history. IDENT or HEART, that's your biometrics. FDNS, DS, that's for fraud indicators. SEVIS, if you or the petitioner were ever an international student in the United States before. And CLASS, that's the system that consulars use at the U.S. Embassy. They want to see if the petitioner has been denied a visa before. If any of those systems trigger a hit, your case will be marked for additional scrutiny. So that's your first bottleneck. So once your case is run through the automated checks, the Immigration Services Officer, or ISO, looks at the case. Finally, they're going to be looking at your evidence, photos, conversations, passport stamps, just looking for signs the case is real, the relationship is real. Now, if something doesn't feel right, that's when FDNS steps in. Now, I want to say that, yes, there is a protocol that ISOs use to adjudicate cases, but a lot of it is just gut feeling. And that's why they use humans instead of having the whole process be automated like some countries do. Because you just can't replace years of experience and seeing what is fraudulent and what doesn't. There are some fraud rings that are very good at covering their tracks, and they can see publicly available information. That's why you need human eyes to look at each case. So let me show you some common triggers that will get your case sent to FDNS. 1, this is a big one. If the petitioner filed an I-129F before, there's an abnormally large age gap. Now, I want to put a note on this. For example, in the Philippines, a large age gap is common. However, if the petition is from Western Europe, a large age gap is not so common. So that's why I say abnormally large age gap for a petitioner and beneficiary for that particular country. Next, this is a big one. The petitioner and the beneficiary are of different religions. That's an extremely large red flag. Next, the beneficiary and the petitioner don't speak the same language, literally. 5, criminal history of the petitioner, especially domestic violence or firearms charges. 6, the beneficiary was petitioned by another guy before. Believe it or not, this happens more than you think. And 7, and lastly, the evidence just looks fake as hell. Yes, they can tell if you photoshopped your chat logs. And again, that goes to the years of experience that I told you about. Alright, so if the case triggers any of those, it's sent to FDNS. FDNS stands for Fraud Detection and National Security. That's where the fraud prevention officers work, and they have access to tools that regular ISOs don't, such as the CIA database, FBI databases, ICE records, State Department records. They can even do house visits if necessary. It doesn't happen that often for K-1 visas, especially it happens more so if both the beneficiary and the petitioner both live in the U.S., but they can do that, and they do that. However, due to a lack of staff and case backlogs, these reviews can take either weeks or months to complete. So that's another big bottleneck for your case. So if your case gets sent to FDNS, you can count on at least 3 months being added to your adjudication times. All right, so let's talk about one of the most common causes of delays for an I-129F petition, and that is lack of evidence. A lot of people who, especially self-filers, don't submit enough evidence, and there's a lot of bad information on the internet. This is why 40% of self-filed petitions are denied or get an RFE. So let me just make this clear. As someone who has been working in visas for a very long time, when it comes to an I-129F petition, only evidence is evidence. Faith is not evidence. Feeling something in your heart is not evidence. ISOs don't care about how much you say you love each other. They care about how well you can prove it. With that said, let's go into some of the most common reasons for RFEs. This is a big one. Failure to prove U.S. citizenship. Only U.S. citizens may petition someone through a K-1 visa. However, some green card holders will try to get around the system by claiming they're citizens. They'll even submit false documents, or they'll just say yes if they are a citizen. However, all petitions are ran through CIS, and they can see whether or not you are a citizen. I can't believe people think that they can get around that. But I guess because they think that USCIS is busy, that they may get through or they won't check it. They do check. Number 2 is lack of evidence that you met the person within the last 2 years. They were being a little bit more lenient about that during COVID, but not anymore. It is required by the Immigration Nationality Act, Section 214D, which states, no petition shall be approved unless the petitioner establishes to the satisfaction of the Attorney General that the petitioner and the alien have met in person within 2 years immediately preceding the date of the filing of the petition, unless the Attorney General waives that requirement. And that's another thing. People will try to say, oh, I'm afraid of flying, or oh, I'm a Muslim now, so I can't meet. Listen, they've heard everything before. If you love this person enough to want to marry them, you should be willing to get your behind on a plane and meet them. Oh, and just an insider tip. Making excuses or applying for a waiver for the meeting in person requirement is actually a huge red flag to indicate lack of financial capacity. If you don't have solid evidence that you actually flew over there and met her, you'll get an RFE and then most likely you'll get a denial. That's why part of your evidence needs to include passport stamps, selfies together, hotel receipts, itineraries. Also, your dates on your photos must match your travel dates. So some people, this is actually an innocent mistake because some people are lazy. This was back when they were using, digital cameras. They didn't feel like setting the date on their cameras, so they would just take pictures because they knew when it was. Well, the problem is the officer would see those, and then it doesn't match your itinerary, and that would flag the case for additional review. This doesn't matter so much now because most people use their phones. Third, insufficient proof of intent to marry within 90 days. You're missing your letters of intent to marry. Your letters of intent to marry were unsigned. You use templates for your letters, which actually happens a lot. Or nowadays, using ChatGPT for your letters. The letters just look way too generic because you used a template and did not alter it sufficiently to make it seem like it was actually yours. They are very aware of the kind of letters that fraud rings use. And actually, one of the biggest ways they use to catch visa fraud rings is that the letters look the same. A lot of these guys that get sloppy and they don't change the letters sufficiently. They just have a template and they literally will just erase the names or the dates and replace those. Actually, funny enough, some of them are so stupid they don't even do that. I've seen cases where they have the wrong name or the name of someone that got approved a month ago on the letter. And so that's why they do check. And it's actually a good way they use to detect visa fraud. 4, weak evidence of a bona fide relationship. They can tell when a petitioner is sending photos that are staged. They can tell when the petitioner is using Photoshop for their chat logs. Yes, they've seen thousands of petitions before. When the officer is thumbing through your evidence, they want to see evidence of a real relationship. And a real relationship should start from something relatively platonic, even if you meet on a dating site, and then escalate to something romantic. They should see disagreements. They should see making up after the disagreements. They should see you two making plans together. Just something that a normal relationship will have. Now, really, what it boils down to is if it just doesn't smell right. There's the smell test. If the relationship with the petition just doesn't smell right with the ISO or with FD&S, you're going to get an RFE. And when you get that RFE, you better make sure you submit a lot of evidence to prove that the relationship is bona fide. Now, this is cultural. A bona fide relationship between someone in America and the Philippines does look very different from a relationship between someone in the United States and in India. And they do understand that. Number 5, missing or unsigned pages in your I-129F form. This happens a lot by self-filers. Page 9 must be signed or it will be sent back to you. 6, inconsistent timelines or conflicting information. We already talked about that with the pictures. You spelled their name wrong. Yes, that happens a lot. And overlapping prior relationships or visa histories. 7, another big one, especially for the Philippines, is missing annulment papers. This happens more in the consular stage, but for the petitioner, that's where USCIS checks. They can tell if you've been divorced, so you need to include your divorce decree in your packet if you have one. Also, foreign divorces will not be accepted unless they've been officially translated. Google Translator will not cut it. You need to get a recognized service to translate your documents. Typically going to charge between $20 to $50 per page. Legal name changes, especially for the beneficiary. You need to have document. If you or your beneficiary change their name, you need to have legal documentation to prove it. Financial information is lacking. This is number 9. You're missing your IRS documents. Use fake documents. Yes, they can tell if you photoshopped your tax returns. And discrepancies between what you sent in the packet and what the IRS shows. And last, if you lied about having filed an I-129F before, your petition, you'll get an RFE and most likely denied. Now, this is a bonus. This is something I normally say for my paying clients, but I'm going to share it with you today. And that is, if your petition just looks too perfect, people, they understand that petitions are made by humans. But if everything just looks like it came from a template, it just looks exactly as it's supposed to, that is actually a huge red flag in and of itself. So you don't want to be sloppy, but you also don't want your petition to look like it came out of a magazine. They just want to see a normal petition for someone who is in love with someone in another country and wants to marry them, and they intend to live in the US. That's where someone like me comes in. I can help you to get that perfect Goldilocks petition. Alright, I hope you found this video to be incredibly educational and helpful. If you would like to have your petition done by a professional who knows the system, go ahead and book a consultation with me on my website at busybodivisa.com. If not, I hope that this video has helped you to file the petition yourself well. Thank you. God bless.